Hello and welcome to episode 14 of LUFC Fan Zone podcast. I'm Sam Isles.
And I'm Jack Ellis.
And each episode we'll be talking to an ex-Leeds United player or manager about their time at the club. We're delighted to announce that today's episode is sponsored by autograph specialists Legendary Signings.
Legendary Signings were founded by Leeds United season ticket holders, and they are the suppliers of hand-signed football memorabilia. After collecting signatures at Ellen Road as youngsters, the brand has taken the step up to now host professional signing sessions of players, past and present.
Their items include signed memorabilia from former Leeds United legends such as Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter and Alan Clark, and their most recent signing session was with Leeds' League One hero Jermaine Beckford.
Hosting signing sessions ensures Legendary Signings acquire the highest quality signatures possible from their clients, and they also offer framing options for their items.
You can find all of their signed items at www.legendarysignings.co.uk on their eBay, Etsy or Amazon stores, where photo proof and certificate of authenticities are also available.
But back to the show. And all of our episodes can be found on our LUFC Fan Zone YouTube channel, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcast. And last episode, we were with former Leeds United striker and Division 1 winner Lee Chapman, who spoke to us about scoring the winner away at Bournemouth to clinch a second division title, making the step up to the top flight and becoming champions of England just 2 years after, and how he celebrated live on television with Gary McAllister, David Batty and Eric Cantona.
However, this week with the former Leeds United head coach and someone who joined the club at the start of the 2014-15 season. He was the first of 6 head coaches under owner Massimo Cellino, and he arrived at Leeds with his most recent role as head coach, coming at Forest Green Rovers in the non-league, making him relatively unknown to most Leeds United fans. Prior to his arrival in England, Cellino had a reputation of losing patience with his managers extremely quickly, and after lasting just 70 days at Ellen Road and taking charge of just 4 championship matches, he was never seen at the club again. That's right. This week we're delighted to be joined by former Leeds United head coach David Hockaday. How are you, David?
Yep, I'm good, thanks.
Good man. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's been over 6 years since your time at Ellen Road now. And since your departure from the club, it's changed quite a bit, both on and off the pitch. But do you still follow Leeds at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the first result I look for. I've always followed Leeds anyway. Getting the chance to be the head coach there was a dream appointment. So however short my tenure was, I made a hell of a lot of friends. Grew to love the place even more, and I'm still stopped in the street now by die-hard Leeds fans, and we chat about the past and the present and the future. So no, it's a big part of my life. Always has been, always will be.
And during them 6 years after you've left Leeds, you've had a couple more head coach roles, but you're now currently the head of football at South Gloucestershire and Stroud College. How's that going for you?
Yeah, really well, because when I finished playing, so I played for 20 years, and then in 1995 I finished, and I established, and this is the thing I'm most proud of in my life, my career. I established the very first football academy ever in this country in 1995 at a place not too far from where I am now. It was a place called Cirencester, and that became very, very popular, and it was the flagship for all of the football colleges now. So, because I also have an academic background, I'd got my O-levels and my 4 A-levels, and I'd been accepted by 5 universities before I signed pro at Blackpool, who were then like a Premiership Championship club. So I was always going to do this again at some time in my career, and a position came up with Championship quality facilities. You would laugh at the facilities I've got. They are immaculate. So I came here. So what I'm doing is I'm head of football. So I run university teams. I run the college teams, and I've had 7 lads sign pro, which from a college team shouldn't happen, but I've had 7 lads sign pro. We're winning national trophies. We're doing really, really, really well. So I'm coaching every day. So I'm like a pig in muck, as they say.
But obviously, you're here to talk about your time at Leeds. And when you arrived at Ellen Road, it was just your second job in management, with your first coming in the conference with Forest Green Rovers, which ended at the start of the 2013-14 season, 1 year before you became Leeds manager. During that time, did you have any approaches from any other clubs, or was it just Leeds?
No, there were other. I mean, what I'd done is I'd been to. my history was basically youth, and so I'd done the youth academy at Cirencester, the very first. Howard Wilkinson came with the Premier League, said, "Listen, we love what you're doing. We're going to do this and take it into the pro game." So I'm very proud of that. So I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened, but I certainly speeded up the process. And then I went back into youth coaching with Watford eventually after 6 incredible years at Cirencester Football Academy. Did really well at Watford, then got taken into the first team environment with Eddie Boothroyd. We were promoted. Ironically, we beat Leeds United in the playoff final at the Millennium. Some ironic smiles on your faces, I can see. So we went to the Premier League. And then, so I'd been predominantly youth-based, and even when I play my teams, even when I've been a senior coach or manager, my teams have always been very, very young. So I believe in young players. So I went to Forest Green. The average age of my team was usually about 21, and that was my first dabble as the head coach or the manager, whatever you want to call me. And I wanted to have it on my CV. I am predominantly more into development than I am into results, but I wanted to do it after the Forest Green, which I loved and had a great experience and found out a lot about myself. There were a few other opportunities that came, but nothing really satisfied me. I went round and I studied. Steve McLaren was brilliant, and every other week for a number of months I went and watched him coach and Paul Simpson as his assistant. They were incredibly generous of spirit. Mark Cooper at Swindon with Luke Williams as his coach. The other week I would go there. So I was just going to lots of meetings, watching lots of clubs, watching lots of games, and just getting a feel for what I wanted to do next. And then out the blue, I got a call, and I ended up becoming head coach of Leeds, which was an absolute dream come true. So obviously, to me, there's no way I was going to turn that down.
At the end of the 2013-14 season, Brian McDermott was the manager of Leeds United, and he was sacked at the end of May, just after the season had finished, virtually straight away. And despite not being in management for almost a year, you became the bookmakers' favourites to take over Leeds. When did he first hear of Leeds' interest, and how did he find out about the possibility of becoming Leeds United's head coach?
Well, so we'll go through this chronologically, and I've told this story a number of times to Leeds fans, but I'm literally in my garden. It's a nice sunny day. It's the close season. I've had a couple of offers. I'm thinking, but nothing's really floating my boat. And then I get a call from a guy, an Italian voice, saying, "I have my sponsor who owns a football club in England. He's heard good things about you. Would you like to go and have a chat with him?" Now, there's lots of wind-ups in football, as you can probably guess. And yet I knew that this wasn't a wind-up. It just had a ring of authenticity about it, however bizarre it was. So at the time, it was either Orient or Leeds. So I said, yeah. He said, "Well, I'll phone you tomorrow, but you're saying you'd be interested." I said, "Yeah, I would." So I'm straight away looking at all of the players at Leeds, all the players at Orient. I'm doing my homework, not talking to anybody, because obviously I don't know which club it is, and it could have been something else. And then I get a phone call the next day. I said, "Right, tomorrow, can you get on a train, get yourself to London, go down here, right here, up here, left here, and you'll come to a hotel called such and such, be there at such and such a time." So again, I didn't know which team it was. So I got on the train, followed the directions, came here, and then the voice appeared. It said, "Hiya, David, I'm such and such. Let's just sit down and we'll wait for my sponsor to appear." So I sat down, had a glass of water, and then eventually in walks Cellino. So straight away, I'm getting rid of all my Orient notes in my head, and I'm fast tracking on the Leeds United notes. And he came in. He was very personable, very likable. Got on really well with him. We sat down. He was smoking and drinking. We had the salt and pepper pots. We had the ashtray out in the open, and there was 4 people there chatting away. And we were there for about 4 hours. Could have been longer. But after 2 hours, Cellino, who was sitting next to me, said, and he was just asking questions and talking about football, very relaxed. And then he just leaned back and said, "David, I like you." And I said, "Well, thank you." I said, "Listen, I'm enjoying talking about football." And I'm thinking, as soon as he came in, I'm thinking, well, realistically, it might be an under-23s coach and maybe getting involved with the first team, because I've got a reputation for being good at set players as well. So maybe being a set piece expert and helping out with my knowledge of the championship. Maybe if I was lucky, it might be that he wanted me to be like an assistant to a foreign manager coming over. I knew of his track record with managers anyway, or head coaches as he would call them. So that's where I was sort of putting myself. And he said, I like you. I went, yeah, thanks, I'm enjoying this. He went, would you like to be my head coach? So like, I always remember the voice on my right nearly fell over. He leaned back on his chair, nearly fell over because I think he was shocked. And I sort of sat back and I said, do you know what you're asking me? So the voice then said, is it too much for you? Is it too much for you? Can you not do it? I said, no, I can do it. But, and I'm looking at Cellino, the president, as I called him, and I said, do you know what you're doing? He said, go on, explain yourself. I said, well, in football, I'm actually quite well known, and I like to think I've got a good reputation as a good coach. I said, but the fans won't have heard of me. The media might have heard little bits of me, but won't really know me. You know, you're setting yourself up for a lot of questions and potentially a lot of pressure. He said, can you handle it? I said, yeah, I can handle it because I'm a coach, and I'll be out on the grass and I'll be coaching the players, and that's what I do. So it'll be more off the field shenanigans that, you know, you might want to be concerned about. He said, no, I can handle that, not a problem. So we shook hands and he said, I'll be back in touch. Didn't promise me it, but he said he was thinking about it. So I've gone away. The next day, from nowhere, I've come in the betting. I am not a gambler. I did not put any bets on. So somebody, I have to guess, in that meeting thought David Hockney's got a good chance. I'm going to put some money on. So straight away, the voice calls me in a couple of days and said, you've come in from nowhere on the betting, the president's not happy, it's all off. I went, well, listen, fine. I hadn't got anything, so I didn't have anything to lose. I said, fine, I haven't done anything wrong, but if that's how he feels, not a problem. And then I heard that he'd had a chat with Eamon Dolan, God rest his soul, a guy at Reading who had a good reputation as a good coach. And then nothing was happening, so I was away with my wife down in Cornwall. The voice on the phone again, President wants to meet you again, Manchester, cloak and dagger stuff. So I drove this time to Manchester, parked up, went to a hotel where I'd been told to go. Still nice sunny day. Somebody from reception says, can you pick up the phone over there in a cubicle? So I went over to a cubicle, picked it up, said, go out the corridor, turn left, turn right, go out, go along 400 yards. There's another hotel there, knockout. So I've done all of this. And then Cellino's there waving me as if I'm his best mate. And I did get on well with him, to be fair. Went over there, chatted for a couple of hours. He said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I'm not doing anything. Why? He said, get yourself to Ellen Road. I'm announcing you. So I went, okay. So I went back to Manchester, got me stuff, went to Leeds United. I'm thinking, is this going to happen? And I went there, and before you guys even say it, I became the first watermelon. The analogy being that you don't really know what you're going to get until you crack it open. So he was taking a gamble, if that's the right word, on a coach to become the head coach of Leeds United, and that, in a nutshell, or in a watermelon, is how it all came about.
And I presume them meetings with Cellino were obviously the first time you'd met Massimo. And yeah. What were your first impressions of him? And what did you actually know about him before you met him? Because he hadn't really been in England for very long, but he did have a reputation for being extremely impatient with some of his head coaches.
Well, that's an understatement. I mean, I knew what I was going into. So I looked at his record with his head coach appointments and the number of head coach appointments. So listen, I knew all of that. He is very personable. He does have a charisma. It's not like he doesn't lack knowledge. I mean, people say a little knowledge can be dangerous. He did know his football. There was almost like a frustrated coach there, and yet that wasn't his skill set. But I found him very engaging, and basically the deal was I picked a team, and I always picked a team. He never, ever stepped over that line because I would have had to have walked, and I think he knew that. He wanted somebody to come in that wasn't in a powerful position. So I didn't have a job, so I wasn't coming in like Bielsa, like Mourinho would, or, Pochettino, where I could sort of demand things. He wanted somebody that he could have a strong influence over. I get that. I wasn't daft. I asked about recruitment, and he said, well, you can recommend players, but at the end of the day, I'll have the final say because it's my money. I went, okay, but, I do want to have an input in that, the yeses and the nos, but the final say was his. So I knew what I was getting into to a degree. I found, I had some great conversations with him. I met him 3 times before, and they went on for hours and hours, and I enjoyed them. I have to be honest, I enjoyed them. And I talked to a few people without mentioning Leeds United. I said, listen, I've been given a chance with an incredible club. And they all said to a person, what have you got to lose? Go for it. Go for it. So I'm very confident in my coaching ability. And every manager coach will tell you you're only as good as your players. So that's where I knew the challenge would be. And then when I went to Leeds and then finally got introduced to the players, who again all said, David, who? Dealing with the players and coaching the players, I'm comfortable with that. The players that he was going to get in, I knew that was going to be the challenge.
Yeah, and like you said, you're obviously appointed the head coach of Leeds United on the 19th of June 2014, which was just 2 weeks after McDermott had left the club. And to unveil you as the new boss, like you said, Massimo Cellino and yourself spoke to the media, and there were lots of highlights, shall we say, from that first interview, like you said, about the watermelons, which we'll move on to a bit later because someone submitted a question about that. But one thing you said was that I have to earn the fans' respect, and equally that they had to earn yours. When you said that, how easily do you think it would have been for you to gain the instant respect from the fans? Because obviously, like you said, many people were questioning your background because you hadn't managed in the Football League before.
Listen, it was going to be tough. This was going to be a real test for me. But, you either step up to the test or you walk away. This was a test I was up for. So, respect in every department you earn. Nobody gives you respect, and you have to earn that respect. Whether people like me or not, that's a personal thing. But as regards my work, then the main thing was I was saying, I'm going to put out a team that Leeds United fans could hopefully identify with. They were going to work hard. They were going to be honest above anything else. And if that was going to be good enough for the Leeds United fans and they saw what I was trying to do, then that's what I was basically saying there. And it's the same with the players. I had to earn their respect, but they had to earn my respect because, if they don't train hard, they don't play. We always say that the manager only writes the names down. It's the form in training and in matches that tells him what names to write down. So I was very, very up for being willing and able to earn the respect of anybody that I needed to earn the respect of. So I was up for it.
Following that press conference, the next job was to meet the Leeds players. And what can you remember about that first day at Thorp Arch and introducing yourself to the squad?
Well, it was chaotic. It was the most dysfunctional group of players I'd had because, I was literally finding things out as I went. So I was introduced to the players. I could see the players going, who are you? Probably a few swear words in there as well, but who are you? So it was, and it's bizarre that you've said about the earn it, because I remember we got them into the war room, as I would call it, where you do your match analysis and your team meetings. And I had a very basic flip chart behind me, and I said, earn it. That's all I'd written, earn it. So I was thinking about all these Churchillian speeches that you can do. So the players came in, sat down. I said, guys, I'm David Hockaday. A lot of you are going to say, David who? Some of you may or may not have heard of me. I said, but we're here now. I hear that there's no food here. I hear there's lots of things that aren't happening here. I've got to earn your respect. I've got to earn mine. So bang, I just banged the board. I said, let's go out. And that basically is what I said. So it was in, it was out, got them on the grass, got the balls out. I'm very much about being a technical coach. So I had 3 days where we did loads of technique, loads of passing, loads of, and the boys will tell you what we did. I found out pretty soon that, because all the players, straight after the senior players, and there was about 8 of them, came to see me and said, listen, Gaffer, we've been told by Cellino that we have to go, that we're going. So if they'd have gone, I'd have had an under-18 team playing in the championship. I was told straight away that the guy who went to Fulham, the Scottish guy, I've forgotten his name now, that he wasn't even going to be available. So as soon as he was fit, I think he went for 11 million.
Ross McCormack.
That he was going to go. He wasn't available, and that in 3 days' time, we were going to go to Italy, up into the Dolomites to do some training. So I'm going, this could be interesting, taking an under-18 group. So I literally got the Steve Warnocks, the Steve Morrisons, Chuck Norris, Dave Norris, Luke Murphy, Rudy, Pierce, the captain, these sorts of guys. And I pulled them in. I said, listen, guys, you're going to have to do me a favour now. You're going to have to trust me. You're not going to be, if the football club want you to leave, that's not going to happen until we get back. We're going to go away to the Dolomites for 2 weeks. I need you to come and be professional as you can. I recognise I need to earn your respect, and likewise. I said, so I need you to come, and all I can promise is you will have the best pre-season you've ever had. And I looked them in the eye, and to be fair to them, and they went, okay, we'll go with that. Did they have much choice? Yeah, they did. But I think they sort of saw that I was being honest. And so I contacted young Cook, who's obviously at Bournemouth now, but he was just been away with the England under-17s. I gave him a phone call. I said, you're coming with me. I had Sam Byram. I was going to take Alex Moat, but he returned with an ankle injury. So I took a lot of young lads that I knew a lot about. I'd asked a lot of people a lot of questions by then. And we went out with, I think, 24 players. The president said, why 24? I said, well, we need 2 22s. You're going to gauge maybe 10 to 15% of the workforce are going to be injured or ill. So, I need to do some 11v11 stuff. So I had to argue that, but it made sense. So we did it. And then we flew out. So I'd had a couple of days, 2 or 3 days at the training ground at Thorp Arch, and then bang, we were on a plane. It was like a whirlwind romance, and we were up in the Dolomites. We've got games organised. We had one game organised against the local team. I remember winning that 16-0, so decent start, but the opposition weren't great, to be fair. But I just made damn sure in the second half, because I played 2 11s, that the second half, their target was to beat the score of the first half. I think it was 2-8-0s. But then there was some Romanian team we were going to play, apparently, but that was never going to happen. And a few Leeds fans had come over, so we put on an 11v11 in the match kits, the 2 match kits, the home and away match kits, for the few fans that had come over, just to show them something. And it was a 3-2 or 2-1, very competitive. And I'd like to think that will be amongst one of the best, if not the best, pre-seasons that any of those players had. It was, whatever else I'm good or not so good at, I believe I'm a good coach. And I was happy with the way the pre-season went.
And like you said, Leeds won that game 16-0, which saw Matt Smith finishing the game with 6 goals and Marco Silvestri switching sides to go in net for the opposition to stop that 17th goal going in, which was obviously Cellino's unlucky number. What was it about number 17 and that Cellino didn't like?
I didn't know that. I know purple. I know he doesn't like purple. Right. So purple. I didn't know at the time 17. I know it now before you said it there, but so I didn't put him in there to stop the 17th. If it had been 17, 18, it wouldn't have bothered me. For me, it was about the result. So I don't know when I changed Silvestri, but it made sense to get him some goalkeeping practice there, because I needed to see him, because I hadn't seen anything of him. So I think I managed that match pretty well. I have no idea of the foundation of why 17 or why purple would be. I think purple is a bit like Marmite with people. You love it or you hate it. I don't know. I think Prince used to love purple rain. But 17 and purple, don't know.
And after that first match ended 16-0, the next opponents failed to turn up, which resulted in Leeds playing against each other in a friendly, which wasn't ideal, obviously. But what sort of preparation did Leeds have to go in for that upcoming championship season?
Got there on the 19th. We did the presentation with Sky, and everything's sort of flying about, and all this information, meeting people, names coming at me, but it's at Elland Road. And then when it had all died down, I said to Cellino, right, what's the pre-season programme? And he said, well, we're going away in 3 weeks' time for 2 weeks to the Dolomites. Got it all sorted out. You love Italy, the food, and you're bragging about his country, and it's beautiful. And he was spot on. And I said, what about pre-season fixtures? And he looked at me and he looked to other people saying, what have we got? We had no fixtures. So I turned up on June the 19th, and obviously by the second week in July, we need to be starting playing games. Now, the good thing for me is I've been in the game many, many years, and I had Leeds United to play. So I'm thinking, okay, we need to play against, need to get a nice little local derby. So I think before we left, did we play Guiseley? I think we played Guiseley. I think we played Mansfield Town, where I was just chopping and changing things. We played Paul Cook's Chesterfield, who were a good footballing team. We went and played Mark Cooper's Swindon Town. Then we played one of the Dundee teams at home. So given the fact that I literally, and this is the truth, probably in less than 3 hours on that afternoon of the 19th, I organised the best pre-season fixture list I could. I think I did pretty well in 3 hours, trying to just get some games, having to think about who I knew and the types of teams that would help us prepare as best we could for the upcoming season. It wasn't ideal, it wasn't perfect, but it was never going to be. You either moan about it or you get on with it. So we got on with it, and we managed to get a few games. The real thing that hamstrung me to a great degree was the fact that our match analysis, I had one guy there, but we literally had no match analysis. So whereas you hear about Bielsa and you see the depth of knowledge that he has on the opposition and the work he does, we were literally going into the few games blind. And I mean blind. I was having to phone up managers as the head coach of Leeds saying, how did they play? What did they do? What formation? And they couldn't believe it. So they were feeling for me, but it was what it was. So I was having to do the best that I could. We had no information on Millwall, our first game, or Brighton, or So we were really good. But to be fair, that's what it is when you're a youth coach. So it wasn't like unfamiliar ground for me, but it was. We were underprepared to the nth degree. But again, it was what it was. So we did what we did. We looked after ourselves.
And during that pre-season, there was a lot of transfer activity at Leeds, and before the end of the summer transfer window, the club had brought in 10 new permanent players, with 6 of them coming over from Italy. And Leeds also sold Ross McCormack, like you said, who was by far Leeds' most influential player from the season before you arrived. How did the player recruitment work when you were in charge? Because there were the Italians that joined the club, which fans could tell had been brought by Cellino and his knowledge of Italy, but there are also players like Nicky Jose and Billy Sharp who didn't really seem like Cellino signings.
So I looked at the squad. I talked to the president every day, numerous times, trying to get inside his head. What he did say, the day that I left, I went to the office. I think he thought I was going to give him a good hiding, but I said, listen, thanks for the opportunity. Are you sure you know what you're doing? But he apologised, and he said, and this is the gospel truth, he said he'd underestimated the quality of the championship and he'd overestimated the quality of the Italian championship, Serie B. So he basically brought in Italians thinking they were going to be good enough, and let's be honest, they weren't. So yeah, all of the Italians that he brought over, he would show me clips, hand on heart, I pretty much said no to all of them, but he brought them over anyway. I said, listen, I need a leader, I need a warrior. So I'd contacted Cardiff City about Mark Hudson. He was available for nothing. Mark Hudson for nothing. He didn't get him in. So I said, okay, there's a lad called Cathcart at Stoke. He might cost a few million. He ended up going to Watford and he's been there ever since. I said, and there's a guy at Celtic called Van Dijk. You might get him for a few million. On my life. So those were my 3 leaders that I wanted in that order, to be perfectly honest. He went and got Bellusci, or whatever his name was, who thought he was a hard case, and he wasn't. So you could sense my frustration. We needed some squad players, some impact players. So I knew Nicky Jose. I'd seen him at Man United. I'd met him and seen him train at Swindon Town. So I got Nicky in. I got Billy Sharp in for nothing. I I wanted a holding midfield player because I knew that he wanted Rudy to go. So I talked to Liverpool. So I could have got Conor Cody for nothing from Liverpool, young lad. I talked to a lad called Air, one of their two technical directors. So he was coming, but he said no, he thought he was too young. He said, go and get me a young striker that, you know, will get goals. So there's a lad called Andre Gray at Luton. I said, go and get him. He said, no, he wants too much money. I went, you're having a laugh. You can get him for pretty much nothing. He went and got Andalucci or whatever his name was, another Antonucci, whatever. So I also wanted Joe. Oh, what's his name? He's now at. Is he at Bolton now? But he was at Blackburn, and then he went to Rangers. The striker, I really liked him. Joe Garner.
Oh
so
yeah.
So good. Listen, I know a player. I gave him some great players to go and get, and I got Nicky Ajose in, and I got Billy Sharp in. I'd have loved to have got Mark Hudson or Cathcart or Van Dijk in. I would have loved to have got Conor Cody in as my holding midfield player. He was having none of it. So, you know, there was the frustration that I got the lad from Arsenal as second choice keeper. Is it Taylor? Very
Taylor, yeah.
He was going to be a great mentor, if you like, for the goalkeeper, Silvestri. So I did my best, guys, but I just could not get him to accept that I probably knew the championship, the English championship, better than he and his scouts or recruitment guys did.
And then, obviously, the first game of the season was Millwall away. And although, like we said, 10 new players had joined Leeds in that transfer window, there were only a couple of new faces for that trip to the Den. And like you said, at Leeds today, obviously, Marcelo Bielsa is the head coach, and he has his own way of analysing the opponents and building up to the game and how they're going to play against different formations and different teams. But what sort of background knowledge did you have against Millwall? Because, like you said, you didn't have much and you were ringing round teams.
None. Ian Holloway was the manager, who I respect massively. He'd had a number of games, but they'd all been behind closed doors. Nobody was saying anything. I literally went into that game blind, so I didn't know their formation. I knew the squad of players. Obviously, that was out there, but I didn't know what formation he was playing, how he was going to play. But I know he'd transformed himself from a real high tempo manager into a passing team. So we went into that game blind. And, you know, obviously Millwall is a hostile place anyway. We made a mistake to go a goal down, made a couple of changes. I think Cookie was playing, and we had some chances, and we had chances to get something out of the game. I'm not saying we played great. I don't think it was a great game from either team. But at 1-0, we had chances to score, to equalise. And then I think Cookie gave away a penalty right towards the end, which was very harsh. We ended up losing 2-0. The president afterwards didn't seem phased at all. He quite liked what we were trying to do. There was no negativity. I'm sort of scratching my head because I'm really angry. I hate losing, even though afterwards I'll go and shake hands and do whatever. But I was learning about the players literally from day to day. I'd seen them in action now for the first time. And then, you know, all the way back on the coach, I'm flipping, changing things and doing things and preparing for the next game.
And like you said, obviously that first match was a 2-0 defeat. However, the next game in the Championship was at Ellen Road against one of the promotion favourites, Middlesbrough. What can you remember about that game and walking out at Ellen Road in front of 24,000 Leeds fans, and of course that winner from Billy Sharp?
It is a dream come true. You know, I get goosebumps now just thinking about it, because whatever else happens, whatever has happened, whatever else will happen in my career, I have led a team out at Ellen Road, and I cannot tell you how proud that makes me. And you can probably hear my voice quivering. So nobody can take that away from me. The proudest day of my life in football. So I think in between that, had we had a cup game and we'd beaten
Accrington Stanley, yeah,
whatever. So we went into it. It was quite bizarre because from then on, it seemed that every game was played on Sky TV. So I was in under the limelight and in this magnifying glass, and every twitch, every nuance, everything was being filmed. And we went out there. They were the favourites to win the league. It was a typical local derby, if you want to call it a local derby. And I'm from Billingham, which is just north of the Tees from Middlesbrough. So Middlesbrough sort of were the team that my dad used to take me to if I wasn't playing on a Saturday. So I was taking Leeds out against arguably my local team. And it was just a tight affair, and they had a goal disallowed for an overhead kick, and where that nearly kicked Steve Warnock's head off. And then, Billy Sharp had a couple of chances, took one, and I think a draw would have been fair. But if either team deserved to win it, it would have been us. So we got that bit of quality from Billy on the day. And yeah, listen, that was just a great day. And it was what I've learned is, being a head coach, being a manager, you need more people. I was allowed to take one person with me. I took Junior Lewis, who's a real calming influence. He's an ex-player. He's a good man. He was a good buffer between me and the players. The players would like him. I liked him. People would like him. But that's all I could take. And you need a team around you to prepare you for the media. I mean, I spent more time dealing with the media, dealing with you guys, and you've got your jobs to do. I get that. Than actually, doing the game on a Saturday. And that, what I did learn is afterwards, my thing is coaching. Talking to you guys, yeah, I can talk. I think I'm quite a well-spoken lad. I'm not daft, but that's not me. I don't like that sort of thing. I just want to coach, get back, think about the next game. That's me as a football person. But listen, it was just a brilliant day, to lead Leeds out against Middlesbrough, to be on Sky, to win the game. That I will never, ever forget every second of that day. That will stay with me till the day I die.
And the following two matches in the Championship were against Brighton at Ellen Road, followed by a trip to Watford, both of which resulted in defeats. And despite them being only the third and fourth league matches of the season, it was reported that Cellino was already losing his patience with the results. Even though Leeds finished that 4-1 loss at Watford with 9 men, with Bellusci giving away a penalty and getting the first of the red cards on the hour mark when the game was 1 apiece. Reports claim that Cellino was ready to fire you after the final whistle at Vicarage Road. However, he had a sudden change of heart and resisted. Was that the case? And if so, what do you think changed his mind?
Yeah, so we went into the Brighton game, and Hoopier was the manager. And again, I talked to the people who played them before, so I had a rough idea of what they were going to do. They came. I thought they were excellent on the night. We ended up going man for man. Played a really brave formation against them. They scored the first goal from our goal kick. Silvestri, I was forever trying to work on his distribution, but he gave a bad. He's supposed to kick it to the left. He kicked it almost 90 degrees away to the right. They've come at us, and he's got beaten at his near post because he was still the bad kick was still in his head. So it was a poor goal to concede. Second half, we dominated. We didn't have loads of chances. I remember Tongi had a great chance, and we were the better team in the second half. We certainly deserved to get something out of the game. And then very, very late on, my wall jumped, which it was told not to jump, and a mishit shot went under the wall and trickled in. So they ended up beating us 2-0. A draw would have been fair, but we lost it in the detail. Then we went to Watford. I'm getting players given to me, so Bellusci turns up. We've got 1 or 2 people injured and niggles. I play him. We played a diamond that day. Watford couldn't handle it. And, if you talk to any people there, if you talk to any of the players there, they'd made some subs. They were ranting and raving. Watford again were one of the favourites. And at 1-1, I think Billy Sharp had whipped a cross in. It was a deflected goal, but we were well worth the 1-1, and we were dominating possession. I'm not saying we were going to go on and win the game comfortably, but we were dominant. And then they've kicked a long ball from the keeper. Bellusci, for some bizarre reason, has tried to volley it first time a little clever as he saw a pass. It gets intercepted. He chases back, gives the referee the opportunity to send him off. Penalty, 2-1, we're down to 10 men. And our backs are up against it. Now, the big thing there was the Pozzos were there. or the Pozzos, however you want to pronounce it, Italians. So Cellino was embarrassed. After the game, I get a phone call saying Cellino's not happy, Cellino's not this. There's a few things said. I've contacted the LMA and the PFA, said, what do I do about this? And they said, listen, you're best just getting on the coach and getting back. So I got back, had a chat with Cellino in the morning, and he said, listen, I'm not happy with this. I said, okay, please take a deep breath. At 1-1, how did you feel? And to be fair to him, he took a deep breath. He went, you were playing a diamond. We were in control. It looked like we were going to win the game. I said, and then what happened? He said, and to be fair to him, he said, the player I brought to you made a crazy mistake, gave away a penalty, got sent off. We're not going to win from there. We're 2-1 down with 10 men. He said, you're right. Nice, easy game coming up. Bradford away in the Cup. Bradford City away in the Cup. Sky are going to be there, so happy days. So I tried to mix it up a little bit, give some of the younger guys a game. We had, again, injuries. We obviously had suspensions. We went out and Luke Murphy, bless him, got yellow carded for what should have been a red card. I'm getting lads warming up saying he's lost it. He's not in the game. Let's get him off before it happens. But within a few minutes, another silly challenge. And I love Luke Murphy. He's a great lad, just on the night. And he was desperate to do well for me. And I was gutted for him. And I was disappointed with him, but I was gutted for him. And so within 20 minutes, we're down to 10 men. So we shuffled the pack a little bit and we're hanging on. My lads are giving everything, my 10 men. And then, as I recall it, the 86th minute, we go and score a goal. I think it was Matt Smith. We score a goal. And if you ask me if I could change two things, one, it would be the recruitment. But two, it would have been to get on Charlie quicker, because I would have gone to a back five. I'd have put Steve. I know exactly what I wanted to do. Steve Warnock in. But as we're getting warmed up, as I'm trying to get things clear in my mind, bang, somebody doesn't do a job. You know, when you're defending a corner, you can't afford then to go zone. You've got to go man for man. And one of my lads, I'm not going to out him, was on the post. He needed to come out and pick up somebody on the edge of the box. Ball comes in, half cleared. Somebody hits it, slight deflection. It goes in top brack. The whole game changed. If we could have seen that corner out, if I could have got Charlie Taylor on, I honestly believe I'd have been manager at Leeds United for a lot longer. I didn't. They then get a second. We then go up the other end. I put Pollian on and we hit the post. So we could even have taken it to extra time, but with 10 men, I don't know. The fans were brilliant because they know I'd given it my best. The players undoubtedly had bled for the jersey with 10 men for 70 plus minutes. And if you're going to lose, I suppose that's how you're going to lose, down to 10 men, giving everything you've got, and just getting caught out on the detail. But I was incredibly proud of my players last night. I was incredibly proud of all the efforts they gave me, because it can't have been easy for the players. And I've been a player, when you know that the president isn't, wants to get rid of you if you're a senior player because you're on too much money or whatever, or you've got a strong personality, or he's bringing in players that are not as good as the players that the president wants to get rid of. So it was a really tough time for the players. I knew exactly what I was going into. Don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I loved every second of it. And as I say, when I was told the next day by Graham Bean that the president was getting rid of me, I went to Leeds, had a chat with the president. He said, no, I can't protect you. But to be fair, I've underrated the English Championship and I've overrated Serie B. We shook hands and I left.
And just to rewind to that Watford match, because obviously we're planning to go on to talk about the Bradford game and everything afterwards soon. By that Watford match, the majority of the Italians had arrived in Leeds with, like you said, Bellusci, Silvestri, Antonucci and Bianchi all starting the game. But what were they all like together in the changing room? Because amongst the fans, there felt like there was a real divide within the squad between the domestic players and the Italian players. Was that the case?
Yeah, there was. And again, it's their culture. So in Italy, certainly the way Cellino operated, he saw himself as the manager. And so after every training session, the Italian players, this is what they did in Italy, they'd contact the chairman or the president and talk to him about the training session and what had gone on. And they talked to him as if he was the manager. I was head coach. Now, to be fair, Cellino never said, this is what I want you to do, this is what I want you to do. I'll give you for instance, and I've already mentioned it previously about Silvestri. Good shot stopper, great shot stopper, but poor as an outfield player, poor as the 11th man. When you came back to him, he didn't have good technique with the ball at his feet. So one day I talked to Neil Sullivan, Sully, the goalkeeping coach, great coach, good lad, good pro. I said, listen, we need to do something about this. So we literally after training, we took Silvestri into another field so nobody could see him. And it's a place where you bang the ball back to the keeper in various areas of the penalty area. And then you've got loads of goals set out on the pitch, and he's got to hit certain goals, literally goals, and put the ball in the net. So it's like a chip to your right back, a chip to your left back, a drive right down the middle to your striker or whatever. So we did that. So I finished training. Somebody comes to me, one of the minions, and says, Cellino wants to talk to you. He's not happy. I went, okay, again. So I called him and he said, come to Elland Road. So I get in my car, go from Thorp Arch to Elland Road, which is not just down the road. Go there, and he said, what are you doing embarrassing my keeper? That's the first time I recognised that the Italian players, after training, never mind games, would report back to the president. So I said, Mr. President, what do you think of Silvestri receiving the ball in open play? He said, it's not good. It's got to get better. I said, so what we did was, and I told him exactly what he did. He said, that's fine. Off you go. So, every time he pulled me, I told him what I was doing and why I was doing it. It always made sense because I'm not daft. And he would say, that's fine, off you go. And that must have happened. He never shouted at me. He never berated me, tried to embarrass me in front of people. He always got me in the office. He was very calm. I think he knew that I was a thinker. But that instance told me that the Italians were reporting back to the president. The English players knew that. There was a definite click in there. I tried to do things in training to get the bodies to me. I'd made sure that there wasn't like the Italians versus the English in five-a-sides. And, if the players think back, I did everything I could to try and get the parties to merge, but some of them had a really poor attitude. Bellusci was a real issue. Thought he was a lot better than he was. So there was a schism, a faction, a clique, whatever you want to call it. And listen, it didn't help. It's one of the many things that didn't help. But at the end of the day, I was the head coach. I had to deal with it. I was dealing with it as best I could. But at the end of the day, I needed him to get in better players than he did. And I was doing the best. I feel I was doing the best with what I had.
And you just mentioned about Bellusci. That Watford match was his first game for Leeds. And like you also mentioned, he was a hugely controversial figure at Leeds, like you said, amongst yourself and the fans as well. But just to elaborate on what you said, what was he actually like, as he was believed to be an influential figure with Cellino and amongst the Italian players? And from that interview with The Guardian you did a year or two ago, you can tell that he isn't your biggest fan.
Well, I haven't read that because I try not to read other stuff. I know what I know. I'll talk to the people that I respect, and I'll go with that. I was shown clips of a number of centre-halves while I was over in Italy, and Bellusci was one of them, and I didn't get it. He wasn't quick. He wasn't particularly good in the air. He wasn't that tall. He gave away a lot of fouls. And I said no at the time. He did bring in a big blonde-haired lad who just didn't want to be there. And I told Cellino, who was then over in Italy, I said, this guy don't want to be here. And you've signed him. So he came and watched the training the next day, and he said, you're right, he's gone. But then, totally out of the blue, Bellusci arrives, unbeknown to me, literally turns up. So I'm okay. So, what do you do? I called the chairman, I said, what's going on? He said, the president, listen, I've signed him, deal with this. And yeah, he had, in my opinion, a poor attitude. I didn't see him as being totally professional, but he was a loose cannon, and as it showed in his first game, he wasn't up to the fitness levels that I would expect. the decision he made to try and do some sort of silly pass rather than just clear his lines and head the ball, proved that, and then he goes away and makes it worse by giving a penalty. The lad's still got to beat my keeper. And then he obviously didn't play against Bradford, and then I was gone anyway. I don't know how long he survived, but I think it was shown that he wasn't the right player to play in the English Championship for Leeds United.
And when you were at the club, Massimo Cellino was repeatedly making headlines for all the wrong reasons. And the reports of him ringing you in the middle of the night and, like you said, bringing you to Ellen Road just to have a quick 2-minute chat, even though it's a good 45 minutes away from Thorp Arch, like you said. But what was he really like? Because fans knew that he was obviously a loose cannon, but they didn't really know to what extent.
Yeah, he was passionate. He wanted his team to do well. He wanted his players to do well. A few times I might not have played his players, so he would have been unhappy with me, but that wasn't my issue. I knew the clock was ticking. I needed to get some results with the resources I had, which were limited. He would phone me up, and initially I would pick up the phone calls late at night, but in the end I thought this is stupid because it's going to affect me and how I perform. So I would stop picking up the phone calls late at night. So that probably went down with a lead balloon. But there was a frustration. He sees himself as a football guy. I actually like him as a person still. If he came into the room now, I'd go over and shake his hand. I know we got COVID, but you know what I mean. Metaphorically, I would go over and shake his hand and I'd chat with him and get on with him. The hardest thing I had at Leeds was the managing up. That was a big challenge for me. I'd never been in that situation before, and to be then given, a guy like him who was, lots of frustrations, lots of passion, lots of knowledge, to be fair, lots of questions, and I get all that, and I like that. So there are lots of things I liked about him, and there were some things that obviously hampered or hindered me doing my job. But at the end of the day, it was what it was, and I was learning literally day by day and trying to pick my way through it as best I can, because the end game was I was having to get my lads to be as fit and as organised and as prepared for the games as best I could to go and win football matches, which I didn't do as well as I needed to.
And as well as all the phone calls and calling you Ellen Road and things like that, like you said, whilst he was in charge at the club, he did do some extremely damaging things to the football club. And he took some dramatic measures to reduce the costs at Leeds, such as making the players bring in their own packed lunches into training because he closed the canteen, and draining the swimming pool at Thorp Arch and things like that, which isn't really at the standard of what a championship club should be. So what sort of impact did that have on you and the side? Because obviously the facilities that should have been there weren't really there.
Yeah, I mean, draining the swimming pool, I mean, it's like a leisure centre. It doesn't need to be like a leisure centre. You don't need a 25-metre swimming pool or however big it is for a football club. I get the fact that you can do some recovery work in there, non-weight-bearing stuff, but, you can do that in small areas. So whoever had designed that had designed a leisure club. So the swimming pool didn't bother me. Closing down the steams and the sauna didn't bother me, because that can dehydrate players to the nth degree. That's not good. So getting rid of the leisure facilities part of it, I didn't have a problem with. The fact that I was trying to educate him all the time as to how things were done in England. He wanted to train in the afternoon, I think because he was a late getter upper and he wanted to come and watch the training. But I said, no, this is how we do it in this country. And even though we play on a Saturday at 3:00 in general, I get the fact that training at 3:00 every day would get people's body cycles more used to it. I've always been of that thought process. People organise the training around their family and getting kids to school, and this is how it is, and this is how we're comfortable. But afterwards, we give the players proper food. No, let them go out. And I said, no, if you let them do that, they'll go out and they'll buy McDonald's and they'll buy stuff that's not good for them. It's up to us, and you can charge them. They have to pay for their food to a degree. I know it's subsidised, but so you've got to put it. So I'm trying to get that through to him all the time as we're getting on. So yeah, and yet then he goes and spends God knows how much on taking them away for 2 weeks to Italy to show Italy off, which is a beautiful country, and the people were gorgeous and the food was magnificent. And we had 2 fantastic weeks there. So it was his idiosyncrasies that he would save pennies on something and spend tens of thousands of pounds on others. And all the time I was trying to educate him onto how it was done in England. And he listened. And some of the things he adapted to, some quicker than others. And all of these things while I'm trying to find out about the opposition, because we had no match analysis, trying to get players in, and he's bringing all of these Italian-based players in. And, so it was chaotic, it was beautiful, it was brilliant, it was ugly, it was everything and more in between. And I wouldn't have changed a second of it.
And just going back to the football itself, like you said, obviously after that Watford match, it was a short trip to Bradford in the League Cup, which was just 4 days after Massimo Cellino had publicly stated that you had his full backing. And like you said, Leeds went 1-0 up thanks to Matt Smith, despite playing with 10 men after Luke Murphy got sent off. However, less than 5 minutes later, Bradford turned it around and the game finished 2-1, meaning that Leeds had lost the 4 of the first 6 matches that season. And unfortunately, that game happened to be our last, and less than 24 hours after the full-time whistle, it was announced that your time at Leeds had come to an end. How and when did you find out that your time at Ellen Road was over?
I was with my wife on the Thursday morning. We had Bolton on the Saturday, and then we had an international break. I was praying. I mean, Bolton were bottom of the league. I don't even know if they had any points. I was very, very confident we were going to beat them. And then I had an international break where I could have got the Italian-based players. I could have worked on their fitness because none of them were good enough to play for Italy. And I could have done a lot of teamwork. We weren't going to have a break. We were going to work bloody hard. So I was praying that I'd be given the Saturday, work through the 2-week break, the international break. And then that would be my mini pre-season, if you like. And then I was confident that we would go and we would be fiercely competitive. But on the Thursday morning, I got a call from Graham Bean that Cellino wanted to get rid of me. I said, where is he now? He said, I don't think I should tell. I said, Graham, where is he? I'm not going to do anything daft. He told me. I went to Ellen Road, knocked on the door. He opened it. I think he had a heart attack. But I said, listen, I'm not here to do anything. Are you sure you know what you're doing? I want to thank you. So we had a long chat, and then in the end, we shook hands and I left. And as I do, and I know you guys don't like it, I just then disappeared over the horizon, and I've left it. I left it a few years before I then started talking to guys such as yourselves and letting you know of my experiences at Leeds when I don't think any damage will be done.
Yeah, and in the end, you were at Leeds for just 70 days, despite signing a 2-year contract. So what does it feel like to be forced to leave the club after such a short period of time when you obviously couldn't get your methods onto the pitch like you probably would have wanted to?
Yeah, I was frustrated because, the coaching is what I believe I'm good at. And I know I'm good at recruitment. I know good players. So I was frustrated that he didn't listen to my recommendations. And then having to deal with the Italian-based players and the clique. And listen, I can go on and on. At the end of the day, I won 2 games out of 6. I knew what I was getting into. I knew the clock was ticking. I was desperate to get to the first international break where I could then have a mini pre-season and really pull the squad together and have a few meetings and really get us better organised. And I didn't get to that. I was a couple of days away from getting there. And if I'd have made those 2 days and played Bolton and won, and I know the lads said some really nice things and won the game against Bolton 1-0. And then they had the break, and Neil took over, who I get on really well with, and he's doing a great job now in the women's football. So I didn't quite get to where I wanted to get to. So it was one of frustration, of pride, because I know that I conducted myself in the proper manner professionally. I did the best that I could. Could I have done better? You can always do better. But at the time, I felt I'd given a good account of myself with all of the things that were going on. So it was just one of frustration that I hadn't really been given as good a chance, mainly because of the signings. So frustration.
And since your departure from Leeds, you've had a couple of stints continuing your coaching career at Coventry and Kidderminster. However, in 2016, like we mentioned at the start, you joined South Gloucester and Stroud College. What made you take that approach rather than continuing your coaching career at a professional club?
So I'd got to the stage, so I went to Coventry and the brief was I was sort of a consultant there. I was going to help Steve Pressley and Neil McFarlane keep Coventry City up. And I get on really well with those two guys. They're brilliant guys. And they brought me into the fold, accepted me. First two games at Coventry, I think it was Scunthorpe, who'd had a great cup run, we drew with. We then away to Sheffield United, drew 2-2 at Sheffield United. And then they go and sack Steve Pressley. And I'm like, going to the chief exec, what are you doing? He says, well, I think I need to be seen to be doing something. I said, so who have you got lined up? He said, I haven't got anybody lined up. I was crazy. So then I took the next game with Neil McFarlane against MK Dons, who got promoted and were the best team in the league, and we won. So I'm thinking, okay, Neil and I are now going to get the gig till the end of the season. And then Tony Mowbray appears. Tony tells me he wants me for the next season. As soon as the season's over and he gets a new contract, he says, I've changed my mind. So then I go and help a mate out at Kidderminster Harriers. I'm told to get rid of all the staff. Or a lot of the bigger players, so I do that. I get a few lads in, but I can't play them until January. January the 1st comes. He says, "Listen, I can't do all this. I can't do that. You're going to have to go." So it was just like I'd lost control, even though I felt I was doing as good a job as I could. I'd lost control of not myself, but of the situation. So I wanted to do something that I could take control of. Initially I was going to set up my own football academy in Swindon, which is where I'm probably best known because I had 8 very successful years there with Lou Macari and Ozzy Ardiles as my managers. But then this facility came up. So Bristol is a huge city. The facility that I'm at, called the Wise Campus, is the best college facility in the country, bar none. When I came here, we were poor, and I'm being kind. We are now the best football college academy in the country, I would say, bar none. Doesn't mean we're going to win everything every year, but we're going to be there or thereabouts. I've had 7 lads already sign at pro clubs. Some of them are worth millions. I'm really proud of what I'm doing. My wife recognises me again. I'm a nicer person. I'm more laid back. I'm happy. I'm coaching every day. I control what I do. My standards are incredibly high. They haven't got down. Hopefully you can hear it in my voice. I am more passionate now about football than I've ever been. I have had approaches from pro clubs. Would I be interested in this and this? Nothing has floated my boat. I'm not looking for anything. I'm really happy here. You never say never. So if Liverpool come and say, do you want to be whatever, then who knows? But I'm very, very happy here. I'm helping young guys get an education both on and off the field of play. We are pushing the boundaries. We're winning pretty much everything that we go in for. The main thing is I'm creating pathways for young guys. And as I say, I've got 7 lads off and some of them are very, very decent. I've got 3 or 4 lads now who are more than good enough to have professional football careers. So that's what I'm concentrating myself on now. But to go back to your question, I'm now back in control of my life. I'm now back in control of my career. I'm very, very happy at this place. They've been brilliant with me and for me, and I'm in a good place. And I'm happy. I'm really, really happy with where I am and what I'm doing. What the future holds, I don't know. But at the moment, we're ripping up trees where we are, and I'm not here just to watch the grass grow. I'm gonna leave a legacy here until such time as I leave, which obviously in time you leave somewhere for whatever reason.
This second section of the show is where our followers get to ask their questions to our guest by commenting on our LUFC Fanzone Instagram post. Each episode, we select 4 questions which are commented and put them forward to our guest.
This week's first question comes from Owen, who asks, during your time at Leeds, did you ever feel a lack of respect from any of the players because of your relatively unknown status before your arrival at Thorp Arch?
I've already said about I went in that first day. The players came in. They'd obviously heard who was going to be it. some of the senior lads would have probably asked about the young lads. You don't, you just take it on, you just bring it on. So it was basically, I'm going to earn your respect, you need to earn my respect, let's go. And it was literally that quick. I went out. I've had some incredible testimonials from the senior players. If you talk to those senior players, I'm pretty confident that they will say whatever else I was or I wasn't, that I'm a decent coach. So did I feel that? No, I felt I earned their respect. In fact, when we were over at Leeds, they came, the senior pros, and came over and said, listen, to be honest, Gaffer, we hadn't heard about you. We didn't know anything about you. But we're having you. You're giving it everything you've got. You've been honest with us. You're working us hard. We're having a great time over here. Brilliant pre-season. So we just want you to know that you've got our backing. And again, I've got goosebumps on the back of my neck, and I've got a lump in my throat, because for the senior pros to do that, that takes a lot of bravery. They didn't have to do that. I respected them and still do respect all of those guys massively. From the guys coming over from Italy, it would be a no. I'm not going to duck away from the question. The English players, from some of the Italian-based players, they came with a chip on the shoulder, with an attitude. And to be fair, I didn't have much chance to show them that I actually knew what I was doing.
And the second question, well, I say question, comes from Mike. And he simply replied with an emoji of a watermelon, which I presume is referring to what Cellino said in your first ever press conference at Leeds, when he said, coaches are like watermelons. You only know how good it is when you open them. What did you think when he used that statement in your very first press conference? And what was it like being referred to as a watermelon before you'd even taken charge of a match?
Well, I suppose it's better than being called a turnip or any other vegetables or fruit. I don't know. I quite get the analogy, Italy, watermelons, you cut it open, you see what you've got. So, listen, I get it. Did I have any control over that? No. What you guys make of it, whether it makes people laugh or not, doesn't really bother me. At the end of the day, he was given an English coach, an untested English coach, an incredible opportunity. That's how I see it. How other people see it, I've got no control over that at all. But so, yeah.
Next up is Kian, who asks, do you have any regrets from your time at Leeds?
Again, the recruitment. I wish he'd listened to me. And in an actual match, I wish I'd got Charlie Taylor on first, put Steve Warnock in, and gone a back five. If I could have done that quicker, then who knows, we could have lasted out that game, got through to the next round. If we'd have done that with 10 men, with that far side fully packed with Leeds United fans. And listen, I have to say this, and I really mean this, everywhere I go, I can be at the top of Ben Nevis and I'll come across a Leeds United fan. I knew they were a big club. I didn't realise how flipping big Leeds United is. It is an institution. It's a worldwide institution. I go there, and to be honest, not one person, and I'm sure there are knockers out there, but every person, every Leeds fan has been absolutely brilliant with me. I think they saw what I was trying to do. I think they feel how handicapped I was, and every single one of them been absolutely brilliant, and a massive, massive respect to everybody at Leeds United for the support they gave me, and to be fair, continue to give me.
And this week's last question comes from Luke, who asks, although your time at the club might have been a little shorter than you would have liked, what was your best memory from being in charge at Leeds United?
Well, it was a lot shorter than I wanted, Luke, but taking my team out at Leeds, beating Middlesbrough, the favourites to go up on Sky, doesn't get any better. I will take that to the grave with me. Nobody can take that away from me, and I am incredibly proud of that. And to take a team out in front of Leeds United fans, wow, that'll never leave me.
And that ends today's episode. Thank you to everyone for sending your questions, and thank you so much for your time, David.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next guest. Stay tuned for the post over in our LUFC Fan Zone Instagram story next week. Thanks for listening.